Good afternoon, everyone. Now we're moving on to the Fireside discussion on labor issues. And please join me in welcoming Mr. Mario Nava, Director General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion of the EU Commission, and Mr. Yiannis Panayiotou, Cyprus's Minister of Labor and Social Insurance. I was recently reading the mission letter to the Commissioner Designate for People, Skills and Preparedness. And in this letter, President von der Leyen assigns the development of a quality jobs roadmap, right? As I understood, this initiative aims to promote fair wages and ensure high standards for health and safety, improve working conditions, etc. And I was wondering, what are the Commission's intentions regarding implementation of this task?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. There's no fire. Thanks God, in Cyprus, although it's called Fireside Chat. The quality job roadmaps. As you know, we have, as a guiding principle for labor issues, we have the so-called Porto targets, which are one on the employment rates, the amount of people that work. The second one is on skills, the amount of people that each year are skilled, retrained. And the third one is on taking people out of poverty, taking 15 million of European out of poverty. The quality job roadmaps could be seen, at least, let's say, now as some sort of fourth criterion, and is to do not so much with the quantity of people who work, but the quality. What does it mean, a quality job? Well, first thing is what you said, a fair wage. So it means that you go to work and you have enough for the 4 weeks of the month. The second thing is general good conditions, which go from, let's say, health and safety at work, so something very basic that should always be ensured, to maybe something more sophisticated, like the fact that you are not in a always-on environment, or something like that, for example, distress is respect and things like that. So what the Commission intends to do for the quality job roadmaps, first of all, let me say, let us see the hearing, because we have the hearing coming up in 3-4 weeks, and I'm sure that the European Parliament, in its wisdom, will give us lots of initiatives. But I would say, from our point of view, we have to look at the quality job roadmaps as a complement to the other 3 targets that we have, and a qualitative complement, as the name says, which really tries to make sure that the people who work derive from the work what they need in terms of money, and they live well in their work. Now, the labor market situation today is completely different from the one of 10 years ago. It's very tight. In Cyprus, they moved from 20% unemployment to 5% unemployment, so it's very tight. So I think we can afford to do all of this now. And for example, yesterday I was at a meeting with the trade unions of the Republic of Cyprus, representing different both employers and employees and so on and on. And I must say the issue of the equality of jobs came up a number of times. So I believe it's a moment where is due, incidentally, on, and then I close, but on the employment target, Europe is doing pretty well. The employment target formally is 78% employment ratio by 2030. Many countries, including Cyprus, are above. Cyprus is 80. Many others are above. But overall, Europe is at 76.8. So we are really there, and we still have 6 years to run. Now, just to put it in the historical context, when there was the Lisbon strategy, the idea was to have 70% by 2010. So in 15 years, we have increased by 8 percentage points, and probably we could increase it even more. Of course, demography helps, and maybe later we'll talk about demography, migration, and all of that. But I would say, given the good numbers, I think it makes sense to look now at the quality, after having made sure that the quantity follows.
Perfect. Minister, how do you see this task aligning regarding the implementation in Cyprus and our policies here.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mario. Good afternoon to all the Cyprus Forumistas. Used. If not, I'm happy to introduce it. Second, I keep thinking that these 3 glasses of water are an accident expected to happen. So if we don't spill it, I will consider this a success. It's a pleasure for me to be here to discuss on labor issues with Mario because we are both partners, institutional partners in the context of European Union, which is the most ambitious project ever initiated in our continent. And European Union went through many stages and the project is successful. And now I believe that EU is at its best through the helicopter money of the 1980s to the intense austerity policies of the previous decade. I believe that the balance between economic development and social cohesion, which is now embedded throughout the European policies, provides for better developments in the future, and most of all, it puts the European citizens in the center of European policies, and especially the labor market is based on the most important capital of Europe, the social capital of Europe, the European people. So for us, European policies are our policies, are the policies we develop together in our union, and especially for our government, which applies a human-centered policy, the priorities of improving the wages towards an adequate level, supporting the middle class and the less privileged employees, better regulation and better monitoring of the labor market, increasing collective agreements and empowering social dialogue are political priorities which are in practice applied through specific measures such as the increase of the minimum wage, such as the renewal of collective agreements in the construction sector recently, and hopefully in a few days, within the next few days, in the hotel industry. Most probably next week, the Parliament will approve a new piece of legislation filed by the government, which will make the use of the digital platform of the Ministry of Labour for the submission of the employment contract conditions of all the employees obligatory are small, bigger and larger steps that lead towards the direction which we believe that will soon be more and more visible by the citizens in their everyday life. In practice, in our system, in the free market and the open competition, the improvement of the quality of life is related to the income of the citizens, and for the great majority of our citizens, their income is their salary. So if the dividends of progress are distributed in a fair way, the development of the economy will be reflected in the level of our wages, and this is also directly related to the level of our future pensions, because if an employee has a low salary for all the period of his or her work life, then that person will also have a low pension. And the rest of the citizens will have to contribute so that social policy will support that citizen. So since we need to foresee and have long-term plans for the next and the generations after the next, we need to focus on these aspects, and I am quite optimistic about the results, and I am also, Mario, very optimistic regarding the way European citizens, Cypriot citizens, employees perceive European Union in a very positive way through the application of these policies. It is very interesting to observe trade unionists who traditionally used to be at least skeptical towards European Union, to cite European directives to convince the other social partners for the need of the expansion of collective agreements, or for the criteria European Union sets for the revision of the minimum salary. This means that citizens embrace European Union more and more, and this makes our EU project more successful than ever.
Do you have something to add?
No, I completely agree with the Minister. I think that social Europe is one of our most fundamental strengths that we have. It's visible inside Europe, but it's also visible outside Europe. I mean, it's not by chance that Europe is the place where people dream to emigrate. I mean, if people want to move somewhere, if you are born in a country that doesn't offer enough opportunities, it's quite natural that you prefer to come to a dimension where your kids can go to university without you paying an arm and a leg, where if you break a leg, you get taken care in the hospital without paying an absurd amount of money, where you may have a pension. So our social system, it's actually a very good factor of production and of competitiveness. I think the point has been made very clear by Mario Draghi in his report. He makes it very clear that the social features actually help both the short-term and the long-term transitions we're trying to do. Probably the biggest lesson of the last 5 years of the von der Leyen Commission is exactly that the difficulties that we have met in the green transition and the digital transition came from the fact that the social aspects were not fully taken care. In the moment we are able to take care of the social aspects, let's say, via the Just Transition Mechanism, with the Social Climate Fund, via better dialogue with the social partners, then the situation improves. So I completely agree with the Minister, and I would even add that it's not only visible inside Europe, but also outside Europe.
You both talked about pensions. So I had a note about this. In Europe, in Cyprus, aging population poses significant challenges to the pension system. With a shrinking workforce and increasing life expectancy, what policy adjustments are being considered to ensure the sustainability of the pension system in the future?
I think the true issue is that we now have the cohort of the people who are around 60, so let's say born between 60 and 70, between 1960 and 1970, okay, that today are between, let's say, 64 and 54. That cohort is huge. It's been the largest in the European Union. And now that means that basically every year we have 1 million less workers, or if you prefer, 1 million more pensioners. So every year we have 1 million less people who work and 1 million more people who need to get a pension. Obviously, that mechanism will not be sustainable, also because of two other things. That the cohort of those who enter, so let's say those who are 25 today, is only 1/3 of those who are 65 today. And the cohort of those who go out of the pension, so let's say those who are in their late age, is much smaller than those who enter in the pension. So you have both a problem in the labor market, the amount of people, and you have a problem of pension sustainability, macroeconomic sustainability, because the pension pool keeps going larger and larger. For many years, citizens were convinced that Pillar 1 pension does it all. That was, say, those of my generation were more or less convinced of that. It's Pillar 1 pension, it's state pension, you didn't need to worry too much. And what member states did regularly, essentially since 20 years or so, they did an interesting equilibrium game between pension adequacy and macroeconomic stabilization of the pension pool. Now this game doesn't work anymore because as I said, the pension pool becomes too big, so you may have simultaneously that the pension adequacy goes down, because there are too many people eating on the same cake, and the macroeconomic stability also goes down because it's too large. So the Commission for a number of years has been insisting on the fact that member states need to take what we call a holistic approach to the pension, involving not only Pillar 1, which is obvious, but also Pillar 2, which is the occupational pension, which is strong in some countries but less strong in others, and the Pillar 3, which is the personal pension. So that is the investment since the young age. And this, I think we have been saying it very consistently. We have advised member states to use all sorts of mechanisms to increase the awareness of people that pension needs to be worked in order that they exist. So for example, the Commission is famous to be in favor of auto-enrollment and many other tricks. But also I believe here is one of those areas where, again, in the report of Mario Draghi, there is need for a joint initiative of the states, but also of the private sector. When you say private pension, personal private pension, that assumes that they exist. That assumes that the product in the market are good enough. That you are 25 years old, you start working, you start saving for when you will be 67, 68, or probably even 70. So 45 years of distance, you need good products so to attract the youngsters. Otherwise, it's not that the youngsters have limited rationality, but very simply, to be motivated to put money away to use them in 45 years, you really need to give a good product. And that's, I think, where the private sector needs to intervene and where the private sector needs to do a good job. So bottom line, I think, is an holistic view of the public, the professional, so companies, and then the private investment. Citizens, young people, lucky them, but they need to understand that the times are different from our times, and they need to invest.
Minister?
To continue from the point Mario completed his remark. The Republic of Cyprus was founded in 1960, and maybe the first important accomplishment of the newly founded state of ours was the establishment of the universal social insurance system. Before 1964, there was not a universal pension system in Cyprus, and usually people who were too old to work were supported by their families. Usually this was supposed to be a task of the daughters. So the older generations used to say, if you have a daughter, you will have a good aging. But for many people who were not supported by their families, life was very, very difficult at old age. So in 1964, the social insurance system in Cyprus became universal, and this year we complete 60 years from that accomplishment. And the most recent actuarial report which is delivered according to their legislation every 3 years to evaluate the sustainability of our pension system. I applied a stress test actuarials do according to international standards, and the actuarial report was delivered by the International Labour Organization, saying that through the 60-year stress test, our social insurance fund, the first pillar of our pension system, is sustainable as long as we apply policies which take into consideration the projections and we do not increase spending without the necessary actuarial evaluation. In view of guaranteeing the sustainability of our pension system for the next 60 years and the next 120 years and the next 180 years, in 2025, we schedule the completion of the reform of our pension system. It will be the first reform after 1980. So we need to make well-informed decisions because the next reform will not happen soon, and we need to make sure that our decisions are result of the proper scientific support and extensive social dialogue. We will focus on 3 main pillars. The first one is to further assist low pensions so they are more adequate. The second is to support the second and the third pension pillar, the occupational pension systems and the private pension investment, and the rationalization of the investment policy of the social insurance fund. At the same time, our aim is not to increase the input by the employers, the employees and the state, so that we will not make the participation in the pension system more demanding for the citizens than it is now. It is important to note, though, that in relation to 20 years before, if we compare 2002 and 2022 data, the ratio between employees and pensioners in Cyprus is worse than it was 20 years ago if we take into consideration only the local workforce and the local pensioners. If we see the big picture, though, and we take into consideration the participation of third country nationals in the labor market of Cyprus, we can see that we have an improved ratio in relation to 20 years ago. Practically, what does this mean? If our economy continues to develop the way the projections of the Ministry of Finance foresee, this will mean that our labor market in 10 years from now will be much bigger than it is, and our demographic capacity regarding the capacity of the local workforce is, even today, is not enough. Today, we have approximately 350,000 local employees, 100,000 European Union citizens working in Cyprus, and 100,000 third country nationals. The projection for the future is that European citizens will need to actively participate in the labor market of their home countries, so they will not increase. Our goal is to have full employment and to manage to activate everybody in Cyprus up to the degree that he or she can do so in the labor market. But we will need additional employees from third countries. So, going back to what we were saying at the beginning, to do this and to further boost our pension system with additional contributors, we need to have a very well regulated labor market with the necessary legislations in place, with monitoring for their application, with collective agreements in place, so that we can have procedures which are smooth and quick, so that we can be attractive for workforce from around the world who will choose to live, to work, to develop here, because it will be a very, very good option for people who have all the necessary skills and have the necessary will to do so. And although I previously said that I am optimistic, I will say it again, because going through the necessary data, going through the collaboration with the social partners, the trade unions, and the representative of the employers, having in mind the EU framework and the support we have from the International Labour Organization, I believe that the reform of our pension system will be very successful, and it will affect in a positive way the pensioners of today, the employees of today, and the pensioners of the future.
Okay. Do we have time for another question? No? No? One question. Okay. With the world changing and the green and digital transitions, which are central to this transformation, what steps are being taken to develop the necessary skills to meet these challenges?
This is probably the biggest challenge, because if you think it logically, the employment rate is high, most of the people are working, but the type of work that people do is completely different from what, for example, they have studied at school. Because the thing changed, the pace of change is very high. So what you need, given that everybody is working, is skilling on the job. That is very clear. We cannot do without. 20, 30, 40 years ago was much less important, because the pace of the technological development was much slower. At this pace, the only possibility is skilling on the job. Skilling on the job, what does it mean? It means, first of all, keep the skills updated, so to speak, but it also means, what I think you are hinting, which is grow the skills at the level of the transition that is necessary. Once again, Mario Draghi says this very clearly in his report. He calls it the ambitious thing, and he observes that these new type of job, they are type of job which have a very high added value. So they produce more in a way, they return more. And therefore, the return on the skill investment is quite important. Skill investment which should look at the whole spectrum of skills. So of course, the scientific skills, of course, the, legal skills, whatever else, but also vocational education and training. Vocational education and training is a central skill for making sure that the whole workforce is there. As you know very well, last year we did something called the European Year of Skills, which got lots of publicity. We did lots of initiatives in this area, and now von der Leyen in her political guidelines called for the Union of Skills. The Union of Skills, what is that? That is little bit like the banking union or like the union, the energy union, is basically putting together the different skills of the European, but also the different practices to learn one another. It's heartening to see that the reply, both of the companies and of the employees, has been pretty good. Pact for Skill, the companies have pledged the ability to retrain 10 million people. Till now, they retrain 3.5, but the biggest company of Europe, and also some non-Europeans. So I go back to what I made before. Now, I don't mention, but there are several Swiss companies that work in Europe, and that you all know because either you eat them or you use them when you hire someone. Those Swiss companies are part of the Pact of Skills. So they have pledged the money to train 10 million people. And we, as European Union, through the ESF, the European Social Fund, we have been training till now something like 35 million Europeans through the programs in all member states for a cost of about 40 billion. So I think a lot is being done. It's not enough. We need to do more. But it's clear that this is the way. We have less and less people, and those who are there need to be very good. It's very simple.
Just some closing remarks, yes?
Thank you, Ioanna. Well, it is, I enjoy very much public discussion with Mario. It's like playing football with a co-player with whom we have very many games together. Although what makes our public discussion easy and smooth is that we share the same framework, the EU framework, which we both fully support and practically apply. I believe that professional development is the second best way to change and improve the world. Many have many different perceptions regarding the best possible way to change the world. Because if everybody is a better professional, as a professional, he or she will provide better services, better goods, etc. Last year, within the European Year of Skills initiative, we developed a national skills plan focusing on green and digital skills, and mainly focusing on how we will change the professional culture in our country so that every professional in Cyprus will realize how, irrespectfully of his or her profession, is related to the dual green and digital transition. We developed all the necessary training material, and we initiated this last year. Thousands of people participated in these workshops throughout Cyprus, and our goal is within the next few years to have more than 100,000 people participating in these learning initiatives. If we have 100,000 people in a labor market which is approximately of 500,000, it means that most probably the culture will shift towards the necessary direction. An important aspect of this plan is that it is inclusive for all the Cypriots. The training programs are also provided in the Turkish language so that they can be more inclusive for all the citizens of Cyprus, and we want to make this inclusive approach a part of everything we design and deliver for the development of our workforce. And I believe that following this direction and further investing on the improvement of the skills of our people, we will further enhance our unique selling point as Europeans, which is the quality of our services, the quality of our goods, and I believe that we will succeed towards this direction.